Welcome to another edition of the Caregivers Network podcast, the place where family and caregivers come together to learn, grow, and get supported. I'm Reggie Cunningham.
And I'm Marlon Phillips.
And each week we explore personal experiences that help us navigate and deal with the challenges of caregiving with confidence.
And whether you are supporting a loved one or working on the front lines, we want you to know that we stand with you and support with you as well.
Okay,
So
great.
Welcome.
All right, we have Kendrick Green and Ebony Tyson, husband and wife together, and they have 6 children, 2 of which are on the spectrum. And before we get started, Marlon, I'm gonna need you to speak up just a little bit if you don't mind, please.
No problem.
All right,
mic up
so
a little bit. There you go.
Kenny and Ebony, I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and share your story, and you tell us what's going on.
Yep.
Absolutely. Ebony, do you want to start, or would you like me to?
Go ahead and start.
Okay. Well, so as he said, we have 6 children, from ranges of 14 to 5. Let's see if I can get this right. So my oldest son is 14. Well, our oldest son is 14. Then our oldest daughter is 12. Josiah is 11. Kiera, who's autistic, she's level 3 nonverbal. She is 7. Tiana is same thing, level 3 nonverbal. She's 6. And then we have our youngest daughter, Regina, who's 5.
Okay. All right.
That is the dream.
Nice spread there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember, so with Kiera and Tiana, for me, the experiences were a little different, as she was pregnant. So we initially knew that Kiera was going to be autistic. So at that time, we were living in Fort Hood, or Killeen, Texas. The doctor had let us know, that she was going to be.
Ask the question? I just but so did they let you know that through testing?
Yes.
Yes, there's like a 21-week test that you take, or the woman takes, not Kenny, that they test. And this is where they kind of search for some developmental issues, like if there's a hole in your brain, Down syndrome, things that can possibly be early on detected. The sooner the better. That way you start a care plan for it.
And what stage of the pregnancy? 2 months, 3 months? Do they start that, or?
Typically about 4 or 5 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Was that like an amniocentesis or something? I think that's what it was called, because my wife was older when she had our daughter. She was like 32 or something like that. And, and we refused it because it doesn't make a difference. We're not going to change anything anyway.
Right.
So no need. So, but that was our experience. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. You're completely
I was just
fine.
for my own edification. I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, you're completely fine. So for me at that time, when they said, when Ebony came to me about it, was like, hey, do you want to do the test? I really didn't have much of a thought. I didn't think that they would come out, autistic. My oldest son, or our oldest 3, they're, I don't want to use the word normal because I feel like normal is subjective, but they're regular functioning, according to what society claims.
Yeah.
So I was like, what, that's fine. Those 2 were the first kids that we had in Texas. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's maybe just something that Texas does. Mm-hmm. So then, it comes back. So initially, for me, how can I say this? It wasn't so much of a shock, it was just kind of more, okay, so what's the education that I need to have when it comes to this? How is this going to be different? And then in my mind, I'm trying to kind of calm my feelings about it. Oh, hey, this is fine. You're a great father. She's an amazing mother. Whatever we need to figure out, we'll figure this out. It's going to be okay. So, we have Kiera. Then, so we have our lowest 3, Kiera, Tiana, and Regina. They're back to back to back. And so, we have Kiera, then Tiana comes. So in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's no way, we're gonna have 2 autistic children. There's, it's okay. So then we find out that Tiana is gonna be autistic.
Wow.
So and Ebony, at any time if you want to jump in, you can jump
Well,
in.
yeah, let's rewind the story just a little bit back. Okay.
Okay.
So some important details about the testing. Of course, it's not 100% accurate.
Mm-hmm.
At the time that they were giving me this test, this is the same little glucose test they're drinking that tastes like terrible to see if you've got pregnancy, diabetes. They're picking and poking, pulling blood out of me for almost any and everything. Okay, so I'm just listen. I just want to make sure my daughter's healthy. I want to make sure that I'm okay to deliver the baby and everything's good. And the test came up, and of course, I discussed the test and was like, should we kind of, focus in on this? And my approach more for this was that, it's God's will. There's no need to try to put myself in a bigger scope of stressing about things while I'm pregnant. Let's get through the pregnancy. Come to find out, of course, Kira, of course, was not hitting her milestones. After a couple of visits, I feel like I noticed at 9 months immediately, okay, eye contact is not being made here. We're not doing some of the same things that the others were doing. So voice concern to doctors, they also tell you that, hey, every baby grows within their own stages. Milestones are met at different ages. By 18 months.
So what age did you start noticing the changes?
I noticed at 9 months. 9 months with Kiera that she wasn't too much she wasn't too much making like eye contact or doing some of the same things she did with Amaya, her sister, her older sister. And after that, of course, you have those appointments at 9 months, 1 year, 18 months. 18 months, doctor checked in with me and with dad as well. Like, okay, no, we're not meeting certain milestones. Let's go ahead and get some additional testing done. Now, but I'm already pregnant with Tiana. I'm pregnant with Tiana. So, there goes a whole nother whirlwind right there, is that I'm about to bring birth to another child. And this child now is not meeting those milestones to where we were. Now we need to be concerned. Now we need to be concerned. Keep in mind, COVID is going on.
Right.
COVID is happening right then and there. And so after a little bit of testing, and it took a little bit because of, the shutdowns and how hard it was to get appointments and stuff like that. I have Kiera, I have Tiana. They state that Kiera is definitely showing symptoms of autism. They're going to go ahead and get us set up with therapy appointments where they came to the house to kind of work with her occupational speech therapy, developmental therapy, sensory techniques. And we were open to those. Then COVID happened and everything shut down. So
let me just say this. I want to commend both of you because you guys were proactive. We've had some people that we've interviewed and they were in denial. So when they were in denial, they stretched out a process of evaluating and determining, yes, in fact, your child is on the spectrum. So I commend both of you for being proactive and, looking into it sooner than being in denial. I think this was like 2 or 3 years down the road where they finally said, oh, maybe all the doctors, what we've done is correct. So kudos to you guys for being aware of the situation and taking advantage of all the resources that you had.
And thank you. And I mean, even that point of view even came from our family members, hey, a baby my grandma was a nap for saying this. That baby gonna move when she need to move. When she gonna move. You ain't no doctor, don't you rush no doctor. Don't tell no doctor to rush you there. That baby gonna move.
Yes.
And they gonna start talking when they're ready to start talking.
Right.
But it's like I said, we paid attention to the signs. And then we requested, of course, testing to when we seen that, okay, we're well past the milestone.
Absolutely.
And then, big boom, COVID happened. Regina came along. It took years to even transfer all of our medical records and everything to Arkansas, because we relocated back home where there was family. So we had a more supportive,
So you said Fort Hood, you're military?
Yes, I was in the Army.
Okay. So you said Fort Hood. I was like, okay, I know that facility. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I miss it. I definitely miss it. But in Arkansas, we went ahead and tried to pick up the treatments and everything immediately, requesting a medical document so that we can get it to her new PCP so that we could get a referral so that we could actually get the diagnosis, because it was like a 2.5 year wait.
Wow.
Just to get the diagnosis. So we went through comprehensive, what was it called? More community resources, places like Boast, to actually get them evaluated and into some place where they could actually have physical therapy, occupational therapy, developmental therapy, and possibly ABA. So
let me interrupt real fast, and I apologize. And one thing real quickly about that was a huge shock to me. So when we came back to Arkansas, this was the first time that I noticed just how behind the state of Arkansas was when it comes to just the neurodivergent community in general. When we would take Kiera and Tiana, for example, to Boast, and we would just listen to whether it was one of the counselors, whether it was the actual teacher, you could just tell that they were not equipped to deal with our type of low functioning, children. I think, and I think most people, well, I'm not going to say most people. I feel that autism kind of has two different viewpoints. Either A, you're looking at autism more from a high functioning standpoint. So you're thinking more of the children who are really geniuses at one element, of their of their life. Or, you're looking at it more from the low functioning end, kind of like with ours. And so, with that being said, just listening to the teachers, listening to just all these developmental counselors and occupational therapists and speech therapists, you could just tell they were just not equipped, at that time to really deal with low functioning autism.
Is that facility you're talking about, or just personal training for the
A
field?
facility. It was a facility, and and not to just even get on the Boast. When we were looking at just different facilities in general, one thing that I'm going to say one thing we learned to ask was, have you ever, or has your facility ever dealt with low functioning, level 3, nonverbal, autistic children?
Right.
And 9 out of 10 times, they've never had one.
As you found out, the level of resources change from state to state, and
Absolutely.
even within the state, depending on how close you are to a metropolitan area. I came from Chicago, where we had a multitude of resources.
Yes.
And now I live in Memphis, Tennessee, and I found that not as many, resources. And on top of that, there are less resources once the child becomes an adult. Once they turn 18,
Yes.
they lose just about everything. And it's so difficult to get help and resources that way. And I'm telling you this so you guys can start working on that now.
So let me ask you. So let me ask you.
Sorry.
So so you guys are all telling me collectively that after they become non-adolescent or 18 and above, the whole situation changes?
Well, I think the key age is either 23 or 26. That is the time where a lot of those resources now completely die off.
Oh, wow.
So, like, for example, with Kiera and Tiana, with both of them, as soon as there is a delay picked up back when we were in Texas, you could typically put your child into that therapy. And that's from early as 6 weeks all the way till the time your doctor recommends it. Also remember your first time parents and stuff. And so depending on your age. After that, they come into elementary age, where there's the therapies are required to do at the schools as well. And then you get those therapies and those services all the way up until 18, you graduate. Then after that, you typically have to transition. Of course, if you have an IEP for an exit interview, your exit interview gets you into a transition of some other resources for adults. And then typically after 23, 26, and do not quote me on the age because it could vary from state to state. I'm not 100% sure, but they all fall off. Has to be Medicaid or Medicare or SSI. Of course, you still get waiver, but you don't see as much being done once you turn 18, you know.
So was that true even within the military?
So,
auspices of military care as well to Arkansas.
So military wise for me, I was when I had Kiera, I was already out of the military. I was a veteran, but I still carried, my military insurance.
Right.
So with them, it's really more trying to help you try to navigate and find a place
resources
versus exactly, versus, that direct care that at the time I kind of thought I was going to get, how can I say this? Having them to me, and just the direct, like the direct day by day of, taking care of them and all that. For me, that I've learned that that's really the easy part. Can you also hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. One of the cameras had frozen out. But to me, it's more of the indirect experiences that were, I don't want to use the word hard, but it taught me a lot. For example, going back to milestones and how milestones look different, with our type of children versus, your regularly functioning children. A milestone for us was Kiera being able to sing in rhythm. For example, she likes the wheels on the bus goes round and round, so she's gonna sing round and round. And she's not gonna really use she's gonna try to say the words round and round, but what she's trying to say. That was a milestone for us. Her actually picking up a pencil and moving that pencil across the paper, that was a milestone for us.
Wow.
Being able to be around other children, without stimming really, really badly. That was a milestone for us. So, I feel like there's so many just indirect lessons that come from that we could be here for hours talking about.
And if we're talking
that. Go ahead.
I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt. So,
okay.
Those, of course, were milestones. And I kind of want to touch more on the milestones because they come from our emotional kind of standpoint when you're dealing with a child who has profound autism. The milestones they hit hard for me was, not being able to hear my baby girl tell me, I love you. Good morning, mama.
Wow.
To mama, I'm hurt. I fell and I hurt myself on my leg or my knee.
Interesting.
The crying, the me not being able to do what I'm biologically meant to do to nurture and take care of you because I don't know what it is that you need. You're nonverbal, you're crying, you're a baby. It could be anything. And even as she progressed, I'm going to say this, but I still face that every day. Of course. What's going on?
That's your child, regardless.
Before we go any further, you threw out some acronyms in there, and just for those who are not involved with special needs or autism, an IEP is an individualized education program, and just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that, and that particular document follows the child wherever they go.
Absolutely.
So and I'm sharing that with Marty because I know he's probably not familiar with that, and I've gone through it, and sometimes I've had to fight to make sure that it was followed as it was supposed to be, but that's just part of the world.
Yes.
So it's like their transcript.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
That
Interesting.
is the legal document to protect your child for while they are in school for the accommodations that they need to thrive. And
Oh,
not just
wow.
in school, because those accommodations don't stop once they're 18. This is the list. This is the legal document that states that my child needs help with this, and that. So it's a very important document. I was definitely one to reach out and make sure that we were one to reach out and make sure we understood our rights with having a disabled child, because
So that transcends all states. That's a federal thing.
IEP for an IEP is a federal. You have to have an IEP if you have a special who's under 18.
And what about over 18?
Now that I'm still navigating, my children are not as of yet 18. However, I do work with some adults who are a part of the neurodivergent community now, and through stories, and I don't want to misquote anything, but accommodations carry over into college as well, because
Wow, good.
if they are high functioning and they can, of course, attend college, they go to
Right.
college.
There are options, for the, child that's over 18. I know Artesia went to college. I don't think she really got as much out of it as we hoped that she would get, but she did have that opportunity to go. And, things started changing. And you're right, between like 22 through 26, she was able to go to high school and stay in high school in a um, controlled environment until the birthday after her 21st birthday or something along those lines. And so that's when she was able to transfer into, college life. And I'm sure you'll find something similar, though down the road. But just be aware. What was it that made you aware that you really needed to know what the IEP was, that individualized educational program?
One, me personally, when it comes to any form of document, where we had to have a meeting in a conference where it wasn't just me and my husband, but the entire district was required to come to this. It's kind of red flagish. I'm like, okay, this isn't for play. Why would they just all call this genre? It's not like starting kindergarten with the other kids. Yeah, you have to transition into kindergarten. Well, what are we transitioning in for? So then we got up, started doing research. Okay, this is something that's really important. Not to mention that at the time, a little bit after we got that diagnosis, I was working at one of my previous employers was at a charter school, 9th through 12th, and they had a special education director there that I was actually able to go, and she gave me the hands-on, the in-depth information about why this meeting was important and why it was important that we either request an advocate, learn how to learn the lingo and how to navigate it yourself, and get as many people involved, because this is the conference about you stating what your child needs. And for me, mom and advocate is hand in hand, just like dad and protector is.
Yeah, and that's very important. And so many of us don't know because we're thrust into this and we don't realize what all we need to know. I had never heard of an IEP, I don't think, until, Artesia was in a 0 to 3 program, getting ready to transition into school. And then back then in Chicago, it was a separate school for her. When we came down to Tennessee, the blessing was that she was in an inclusive environment, and that brought her out of her shell. She was very quiet unless she really knew you. But once she got into the school, I still remember to this day, there were 3 girls that took her under their wing, and she just blossomed under them. And so that made me feel like really, really good. I'm kind of tearing up now just thinking about that. And those are the blessings that you have.
Absolutely.
You see,
Oh man.
Artesia, you talked about your daughter, singing. Artesia started singing, I don't know how early, but she would get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning singing at the top of her lungs. I did not need an alarm clock because she was always there. Till
Absolutely.
this day, she sings at the top of her lungs. Can't carry a tune. I hear in the background. I don't know if you hear. No, I don't. But anyway, so yeah. But those are the bright moments that make it sometimes worthwhile.
Those
You
are
know,
the
and speaking on the bright moments very quickly, there's been so many and let's keep using the word blessings. I like that.
I
There you
love
There's been
that.
go.
so many
Yes.
blessings that comes from it. For example, um, you know, with me being back when back when I was in the military, I would say that my level of patience was very low. And one thing that I would say when it comes to having Kiera and Tiana, just having emotional capacity just in general has been so prevalent just in my life, not only with them, but just with other people in general. I'm able to sit and listen to people speak. You know, I'm
Hmm.
able to um, I'm able to actually listen to different problems and not be so consumed in what I have going on that I can't give a listening ear, and some
Interesting.
type of wisdom,
Yeah.
that I've been given. So that's a big one for me when it comes to having them, is just having that emotional capacity to be able to go, okay, you're crying. For normal people, it's okay, they're crying. Are they hungry? Are they sleepy? Are they tired? They
Mhm.
may get a little irritated. For us, is it one of those things? Are you stimming? Are you is it something that you're doing right now at this very moment? Is it what's the word I'm looking for? Is it overloading you
Hmm.
emotionally in some type of
Mm.
capacity? Whether and I've seen it to where there could be a TV show playing, and maybe the music from the TV show is causing her, to be upset. I've 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 seen times where, say, if too many people come in the house. Ebony has a very close knit family and a bunch of sisters, a bunch of younger sisters that like to come in and raid my fridge. But that's for another story. When a lot of them come in, with their children and all that, especially when it comes to Tiana, uh, having so many people, she has sensory overload just really
Mhm.
bad. And so,
Hmm.
I've noticed with that, she'll have to kind of run in the room and kind of self soothe herself, versus a
Tell me,
Kiera,
don't feel bad. I have that with relatives too.
oh yeah,
It's like, okay, after you guys got to get out of here. Okay,
oh
I
yeah,
feel
oh
Tiana's
yeah,
pain on that.
oh
You
yeah,
Uh-huh.
know,
oh
I'm
yeah,
overloaded here, dad, mom. These people
oh
got to
yeah,
go.
Called
It's
absolutely,
but I
overstimulation.
will share something else with you that Reggie and I want to pass on to you. You mentioned the word patience.
yes,
So I hope one of the things that you take from this is we pray for strength for you too,
thank you,
because God will test your patience.
Mhm.
absolutely, absolutely,
So
you,
you got our strength prayer on a regular basis. Give me the
Yes.
absolutely,
strength, Lord, to get
and
through this, and then everything else is smooth after that. But
absolutely,
definitely, you
that's
got
why I
the
like
patience
using the
prayer.
word emotional capacity, because I believe that having that, there's a level of strength that needs to be there. There's a level of
Yeah,
patience that needs to be there. I mean, I just feel like there's so many different soft skills, not small skills, soft skills that come into play when it comes to caregiving, from this aspect of it.
oh
Mr.
yeah.
Cunningham, I know that you know this way better than we do at this age. If you don't mind me asking, real quickly, what was it like when your daughter was younger, versus in today's time? What were the resources that you had, coming up
Mhm.
with you and your
All right.
wife?
What it was like when Artesia was a typical child up until 6 months.
Okay.
She did all the normal things. At 6 months, she had a a seizure
Mm,
for the first time.
Mhm.
And we did not know what that was. And we happened to be away, 2 hours away, at my wife's hometown
mhm.
for her sister's wedding.
Okay.
And when that was over with, we brought her back to Chicago, took her to Chicago Memorial Hospital. Actually, we took her to a pediatrician. They didn't know what was wrong. They
Right.
found out that her blood sugar level was very low, but she was atypical. You get lethargic, most people. That
Right.
wasn't Artesia. She was just normal. And she ended up staying in the hospital for a month before they could figure out what was wrong. And that's when they came
Wow.
back with hypoglycemia, right?
Mm,
Which is the opposite of being diabetic for those who don't know.
right.
And so her pancreas wasn't functioning properly. At that point, we had this do thicken her milk, her formula every night, feed her every 4 hours because they thought that liquids would go down the wrong way and she would get pneumonia.
Mm.
I don't know. In God's wisdom, she has never had pneumonia. She has her body for somehow has always adjusted, and you just don't know. So we took her blood sugar level, daily, multiple times a day, and until she got to a point where she can tell us verbally that something was wrong. And she would never say that her blood sugar level was low, but we started learning the symptoms,
Right.
and just looking at
Mhm.
her. But
Yeah.
she will tell us when she had an ear infection. Once she
Absolutely.
learned that, and she had multiple ear infections, and
Mhm.
so we just kind of gradually started, paying more attention to her.
Mhm.
I have a picture when she's all dressed up for Easter, and we didn't know at the time, but when I look back at it, I could see in that picture that she wasn't right. You know, her blood sugar level was low, and you grow with it, and you acquire that knowledge, and you keep doing whatever you can for your child to do the
Mhm.
best. And sometimes,
Mhm.
you have to be uh, a bigger advocate than you sometimes you feel. I remember there was a really arrogant doctor at Children's Memorial Hospital, and he was telling us what was going on and telling us what we should do. And I went and I you talked about being compassionate. I like to listen to people. I give people respect, but I also demand respect. And so when
Absolutely.
he finished, I started telling him some things, and he stopped. He kept interrupting me, and I said, "No, look, we've got the PhD in this child.
There you go.
I don't care what you have to say, but you're going to listen to me." And he said, "Well, you can
Mhm.
get a different doctor." And I'm like, "Okay, you're right. I
Okay.
can. And I can also tell your superior how you treating the parents of one of your patients."
And
Absolutely.
write
Wasn't
something on their NPI about it. There we go.
right.
Let's get that
For
following.
me,
Let's get that
I'm
following.
never impressed by your degrees.
Yes.
The letters behind your name, that doesn't impress me. What can you do to help me help my child?
Yes.
That impresses me. So I never had any other problems out of him after that. So, but
That that makes
and I'm just saying that because you have to be an advocate. You have to learn
You.
to develop that strength, as we
Mhm.
talked about, to fight for your child.
Mhm.
exactly.
You know,
No,
Most
You know, and
definitely.
then there's
Nobody knows your child better than you do.
right? And that was
exactly,
my point.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
so
And
that's something that's a challenge that we still today face. I feel like I face it more than what dad faces. We face this challenge together. Okay, is the fact that when I get in front of a doctor and I start telling you what my concerns are here and there, they're real quick to cut you short, real quick not to listen into what it is that the 15 to 30-minute meeting
Yeah,
they
tell
have
me
with
about
your
it.
child is.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm telling you these things, and when ma'am, you get two voices from me because my child is nonverbal, so I have to be her voice.
Hmm.
Okay, so you can't
Yeah.
just sit there, come in here and look at her for 15 to 20 minutes and tell me what's going on with my child. You
Mhm.
have to listen to me. Don't
Yeah.
cut me off. Don't take my respect because I'm advocating for something that you don't have time to you can't test
Mhm.
all the way through.
Yeah.
That's something I fight every day here. Every day is a different agency, teacher, organization trying to tell me what my child can't do.
Hmm.
And that is my biggest pet peeve right there. Is it's actually the fuel that fires. Marlon, you said you wanted to pray for strength. I don't need prayer for strength. I need prayer for patience. The strength, yeah, the strength is already there. I look
Yes.
at my daughter's face. I look not just Kiera and Tiana, but I look at all of my children's face,
Hmm.
and that is my strength right there.
Mhm.
And it's like the Energizer Bunny. I keep going and going and going and going and
Well,
going.
Heard
the
that
old
about
cliche
you,
is,
Ebony.
yeah, the old cliche is the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Hey,
You don't advocate, you know, obviously, you go to an office and it's a group of you there and everybody's got an appointment. So it used to be, well, the first in always got the easiest treatment because the doctor wasn't tired. No, we're paying this bill for me to be the same all the way, all day. Okay. I get tired of my job too, but I'm going to tell my boss I'm going home, So my point I'm trying to make is that, fine, if that's the way you feel, then you need to schedule my children first. Okay. If I know that, and that's the atmosphere, get my children in first, because after that, I'm not being crass, but after my children, everybody else comes second. That would just, that's how I would be.
And it doesn't change, because Marlon experienced the same thing with his mom going to the hospital and having to advocate for her. And as a senior, he had to jump through a little bit of hoops in order to make his voice heard.
To your point about during COVID, my mother's been here with me. She was out of sync. So I know her enough to know that this is more than something that I can deal with at the house. But here they said that you could not bring a person to the hospital and stay with them. You had to drop them off in the emergency room now, and we'll get to them when we can. So, I went over to the hospital and I went to the emergency room. I said, look, I got an 89-year-old woman, a mother. She's not well. Something's not right with her. And I need you to let me know. If I bring her here to the emergency room, will you let me go back in the emergency room with her? So as God was in the plan, he said, this is what I'll do, Mr. Phillips. You can bring your mother back here to the hospital, and I'll get you to the back of the emergency room, because the waiting room was packed with people. People sitting in wheelchairs and all this kind of stuff. So I go get her, I bring her back, and my mother just had that, I guess, Christian spirit. There's an African lady on the intake that she just bonded with. They got all her paperwork, plus she has some damn good insurance. I found that out too. The better your insurance, sometimes the better you get treated.
Yes.
That said, we ended up in a full emergency room, had our own area. She was in there by herself with me. Doctors came in, took a battery test, and she had a UTI and was dehydrated. Okay. So it took a little while, but in the interim, this is how God worked. And I'm going to share this with you. The trauma room and emergency room doctors were a husband and wife team. They came in and they knew all about my mother. Okay. And bedside manner, everything was great. Well, this is how God works. That little young kid that was at the front desk, that was their son. And he had told them about my mother because he was home from college because of COVID, and they just had him working at the front desk.
That's a blessing.
I went out and gave him a tip, and it wasn't not you doing a good job either. That's how things work for you, because they ended up taking care of mom. And the other thing is that, I could tell them about her medications, because I didn't want her to get there. She couldn't speak for herself. I don't want you to over-medicate or over-diagnose or under-diagnose, but these are the medicines that she took. This is the last time she took them. This is how long this has been going on. Okay, so that's what I need you to address. And, sometimes if you don't speak up, somebody else will speak out.
Makes
that
perfect
right
sense.
there. And
Go ahead, Amy.
I'm sorry, Miss Marlon. I was kind of getting on to a story that's kind of similar with Tiana, for example, because she can't advocate or because they can't talk for themselves. We need a more open-minded, more community. So my daughters are required to be tested here in Envision every year because they are special needs. That's part of their rights for whatever organization they're enrolled into. Wow. So, Tiana is 6 years old. And there was a point where they were doing the test, and I had asked the doctor, and it was kind of literally brushed off. I was like, "Well, how are you getting accurate test if a vision test if she can't talk?" Right. And you want to know what? It took until her transition into kindergarten, where I had to where we were there at the student service area, and she stopped and she said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about that." I was, by then I'm telling her, "Man, I'm used to it. I'm used to this sort of, I'm used to this sort of appointment." So signing us up for things that don't fit what we need. No prognosis, the bare minimum, just to show that you've done the test, you've checked off the box. And then when I got her to, and I thank God every day for the school that my daughter goes to. I thank God every day for her special education team and for those peers and for the speech pathologists, because they were the ones who literally told me, Ebony, there's a place that works with special education kids. Guess what? My daughter's farsighted and been walking around with no glasses all the way.
Really?
You know, they're telling me, you know, Tiana kind of turned his pictures upside down and hold, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I thought it was her stimming. You know, I'm coming to the professionals. What do you think? No one thought.
And she was farsighted?
Yeah. So she needed glasses. And, you know, I kind of looked at those glasses after we got the prescription too. And I was like, whoo, okay, maybe this is why we a little bit more clumsier than what we should be, you know? And the thing about that is that if someone would have listened or even thought to go one step beyond more than what was worth or what was required, maybe we would have got that. Maybe we would have got that info a lot sooner, helping a lot of the therapies that she would went through and stuff.
So let me ask you this. So what's the day at your house like with everybody interacting with each other?
Sir, Kenny, do you want me to take this one?
You can give me the easy or layman's version.
If you don't mind, before we do that, I just wanted to say real fast. So for me, when it comes to, you know, the doctors, the speech pathologists, the teachers, you know, whichever label you want to use, you know, that helps our children. And I think this kind of goes back to that whole patience thing. You know, for me, I think I've kind of gotten to the point in life where I expect most professionals to observe my child from a theoretical standpoint first, you know, versus you know, listening to us, you know. And this kind of goes back to what Reggie was saying, you know, us having a PhD in our own children, you know, from practical experience, not from, you know, you all looking at a couple books and, you know, and a couple people getting together and determining what this diagnosis is going to be and the side effects of, you know, of what happens with it. So one thing that I really hate when it comes to, and I use the word hate in its proper context, one thing that I really hate when it comes to medical professionals, especially when I'm not there with Ebony. So, and I don't know if Reggie can attest to this as well. So if I'm there, you know, I just have a natural, I've always just had a natural mean face. I hate that about myself. You know, even when I talk, I've literally trained myself to smile when I talk. My grandpa, back when I was young, used to tell me, son, you dark skinned, you mean looking, you need a smile. You know, you know, he's just very transparent. And so, you know, with that being said, you know, when I have conversations with professionals, you know, it's a little different than when Ebony has them. And you know, and I wish that was something that changed, you know. And to me, I wish that more medical professionals did things from a genuine perspective, not from and I don't even want to use a fear-based perspective, but not because, you know, I'm the man, I have the deeper voice, and you know, I can project this voice a little louder than what she can. You know, so that's something that I'm hoping as time progresses and, you know, equality actually looks more like equality, you know, that changes. But going back to what you were saying about you know, how our days look. So currently right now is, you know, it's different. It's different.
It's a little different right now.
So currently right now, our children, they're out of school for 2 weeks for
the holidays. Yeah, for the season holidays. Yeah.
Yes. And so Kiera has been trying to stay up all night. She's at that age where, you know, she sees her older brothers doing it, and you know, and they're trying to play video games and stay up and all that. So, you know, she's trying to hang with the big dogs per se. Tiana Tiana's always been a loner. I really feel like Tiana's a little bit like me. I like my space.
Yeah.
Not saying I love everybody. I like my space. So normally throughout the day, Kiara is going to be the one that's kind of in the mix per se with all the other children. Um, Tiana's kind of Tiana's going to kind of shy away and kind of go in her room. She's the one that you kind of got to check on more than anybody. Um, One thing about our children, our oldest three, that I absolutely love and it is an absolute blessing. They are so patient
Mm.
with Kiera and Tiana.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I don't think that is really mentioned enough, especially when you come from when you have two, two special needs children and then children who are again normal per se is
Typical.
yeah there you go, thank you, is the amount of patience that they have to have, especially with them them being in their adolescent phase.
Mm-hmm.
So they're already teenagers. God only knows the amount of emotions that they deal with that we'll probably never know, but that Ebony and I will probably never know about.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, you when Kiera and Tiana come up and and they don't speak, so they're walking up to you. They're gonna grab your hand to take you to wherever it is that the general direction of what it is that they're trying to get. And so
Mm-hmm.
then from there, they take you in the kitchen, and now it's a guessing game. So for us, husband wife, we can figure that out, a lot faster than what they
Mm-hmm.
can, and sometimes, especially with Josiah and Amaya, who are 11 and 12, I've seen, I've kind of just seen and witnessed them, just, hey, is this what you're looking for? So that
Mm-hmm.
they'll kind of point it to her, she'll
Great,
push it
great.
back.
Yeah.
They'll grab something else, they'll push it back, there's never been a time that they're like, you know what, I don't know.
I hear you.
That's I can't help you. And I'm so blessed to have children like that. Because,
Yeah.
I know adults and I've seen adults do that. I don't know what they wanted. And, they just kind of got upset. And it's made me very, very hesitant to let people watch your children.
Yeah.
Even in my own family, and I don't know,
Yeah.
Reggie, if you can explain, if you can attest this too, but I love my family. They're great. Both my mom's side, my dad's side, and my stepdad's side. I come from a blended family. All of them, they're beautiful people. We're the only
But
people who have autistic children.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's a level of patience, as you all know, when it comes to caregiving in general. There's a level of patience that you just have to have. You
Yep.
know, and for me, I'm one of those guys. I look at those little subtle cues. If my daughter is kind of is 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 stimming, and she's just kind of yelling out of nowhere, and now you kind of getting those kind of side
mm-hmm,
looks,
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
or the hey, I don't know it, what does she need, just
Well, it's funny that you say that because when we used to have family gatherings and Reggie and Candy, Auntie and Austin would come to the house,
Mhm,
she was just one of the crew. We didn't treat her any different than
mhm.
any of the other children there. She, I think she kind of liked me a little bit because she used to be clingy, but we didn't treat her any different. If she want to be in the kitchen with the women, then so be it. If she want to be
That's a
downstairs,
blessing.
so be it. If she want to do her
That's a
own
blessing.
thing, we all show her love, man.
That's a
So
blessing.
yeah,
That is a
that's kind of the
blessing.
way we grew up.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
Ebony side is like that, and again, I love my side. I don't want to, make it seem like, there's anything wrong with them. They're not the people who, and I've had to learn this over the years. There are some people, and this kind of goes back to that emotional capacity thing that I keep talking about. There are some people who have the patience and the love and the understanding to be able to kind of go to that next step. So what exactly does she need when she's doing this cry? What
Mhm.
does this mean? when she's walking around and she's just kind of shaking and all that, what does this mean? No, they're actually able to ask questions, and within those questions, I feel like in life in general, when people stop asking questions, I feel like that's where people stop evolving, in my personal opinion. So, with that being said, one thing that her family is really good at, and I'll let her speak on it, and in more detail, they'll ask those questions. They're not going to assume. They're gonna call Ebony, hey Ebony, especially one of her sisters. Her name is Janae. Hey Ebony, Kiara is doing this, and this. What do I need to do? Kiara won't. I've cooked Kiara this. I know that you've cooked this before. I don't know why she's eating it. I'm pretty sure it's a texture thing. How can I fix this? And that's one thing I'm so blessed to have when it comes to her side.
Yeah.
Yes, when it comes to my side, we still of course have struggles, but we're family. It doesn't matter. A matter of fact, I think that the one thing that I would say differently is that because of how close knit and tight we are, they don't understand that, there's things that you can't do with them that you could do with the other children as far as supporting goes. Like, I have a cousin who loves to throw these immaculate parties, family parties, to reunions, to unite the family, the barbecue, the swimming, the good stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
She loves involving the kids with it. That's who we are. It's our core. There's times where I've got to, say do a pass on it because I know that environment is going to overstimulate one of my children.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have to make a balance of making sure that the other ones are still included into those festivals and that festive given that time, but also protect the child that I know that's not going to do right in that area. And then of course, sometimes, a lot of them, just like with everyone, they have their own preconceived notion about what autism is on a scale, on a spectrum. And that's kind of like my biggest pet peeve, is because there's not enough research and studies to go into it to kind of navigate when and what happens where, So for me.
But the Kendrick point about education, you make a good point to follow on what Ebony's saying, because I grew up in a small town. Special needs, physical challenge. Back when I grew up, we didn't have educational resources to see the difference between challenging children, and they just lumped them all in a room together.
Exactly.
My aunt used to teach it. They used to call it special ed, which is not, that's what it was at the time. But you had everybody in there: autistic, polio,
Yes.
Wheelchair bound,
Yes.
mildly retarded, all of that stuff. So
Absolutely.
Thank God we've evolved enough to be able to segregate the differences and where possible, put them in different learning structures. But my aunt taught that class. So she
Absolutely.
really helped the family understand just the different types of kids, because some of them were her relatives.
And then, going in the judgment, I feel like there's a duality there when it comes to just judgment in general. For example, I was telling Reggie before we got on that I was watching the previous episode where I forgot her name, where she was
Lisa.
speaking on Lisa, when Lisa was speaking about her caregiving with her mother. I never one time have thought about, and I know I'm the oldest. At some point in time, I'm going to be the person to take care of my mom, to take care of my dad. I'm going to be that person, and it's kind of understood. And just the details that that you all were speaking about, I never one time thought about. I just kind of had like a surface level understanding of what I thought it was going to be, and that's just what that kind of was. And so going back and thinking about it from our perspective on autism, it's hard for me to get upset at people because of it, because I know at the end of the day, this is something that you don't deal with this practically every single day.
That's right.
So I don't, and then on top of that, I don't expect you to just kind of go out and randomly look up, the differences in neurodiversity just in general.
Until
So
until you get on the front lines, like we said. I mean, with my mother,
absolutely.
trust me, I did not. That was not in my plan. Okay,
Right.
but she ended up with me for 7 years, and I just became a caregiver. As we said, nobody signs up to be a caregiver.
Absolutely.
It's just God's divine intervention. So to the point about your mother and being the oldest, sometimes, man, we get thrust into situations. I didn't ask for this.
Absolutely.
Let me jump in here because there's a couple things I want to say. First off, that was a great segue into family because that was my next question to the two
I'm
of
so
you
sorry.
about
I'm sorry. I just get the topic.
your children and how they react to your daughters who are on the spectrum and your extended family, how they reacted. But first off, I wanted to say, because you just said it, Kenny, thank you for blessing us and validating. This is why we do the podcast, so that
Absolutely.
we can share things with one another and others can learn from
Absolutely.
the guests that we have on. So that just made me feel good. So I wanted to do that. And before I get back to the family part of it, we had talked to Ebony. You said you pray for patience. I have to share with you, when I pray for patience, God tested me with patience, which is why I don't
Amen.
pray for patience
That's
anymore.
a shoo.
And
Strictly
in
string.
church, somebody once told me, and you probably have heard this too, that God doesn't put more on you than you can bear.
Mhm.
That's right.
And
That's
my
right.
response was, sometimes I wish God wouldn't think so highly of me.
Yeah, me.
I was gonna literally say that, I know we had a conversation before where I was telling you that, it's written, God's not gonna give you more than what you can bear. It's written.
But sometimes it's a heavy load.
I was sitting there wondering, can we go back can we have a board meeting? Because you sent me too profound. And then four
What was I saying? Why me, oh Lord? Why me?
Wait a minute. And I'm just like, you thinking real highly of me today.
Yeah,
I'm
but
honored. You're your humble servant here, but can we
but when you say,
divide and
why me,
conquer?
Lord, why me, Lord, why me, Lord, you know what your
Yes,
grandmother would
yes.
come back and say? Why not you?
That's it.
Exactly.
Exactly
So,
what my grandma, why not you? And then you just kind of got to take a seat, or I'm gonna have a drink, okay,
Yeah.
man, okay, grandma, you're right.
That's it.
So let
so
me ask you this.
one thing, when I'm going to say this very quickly, I know one thing about me is that I know my strengths and then I know my weaknesses.
Yeah.
I was born a caregiver. I already knew that was what I was going to be.
Wow.
I knew that I wanted a large family. I'm the oldest of six. I'm sorry, the oldest of five on my mother's side, the second oldest of seven on my father's side.
Wow.
I've always been a caregiver. I've always had to help, of course, care for my siblings. I've always I CNA'd the second I got out of high school with things.
But
And
sometimes you just don't know. But to
I just
just
didn't know
jog my
about.
memory, looking back, my mother took care of my father till he passed away at home. She took care of my grandmother in the home. And now I'm taking care of her. So I guess to your point, Ebony, I guess I didn't know I was going to be a caregiver, but I guess God was grooming me through those episodes to get to where we are. So yeah, that's
And
an
for the
interesting
things
point.
I can't do, or for the times I feel weak, during the times I'm tired, I know He's carrying me across it.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
you got Kenny too now.
So let me ask you this, and this is what. First off, let me go back to the different family members who don't understand. My and I don't use this term. My stepmother came into my life more than 30 years ago. My mom was killed when I was young, and when we had children, she wasn't comfortable dealing with my daughter. And she literally said that she would take, Austin and keep him for the weekend, but not my daughter.
Yes.
And both my wife and I was like, well, if you're not willing to take her, you can't take him.
Yes.
Wow.
Because we're not going to differentiate them like that.
Yes.
So, and she eventually learned, and she apologized many years later, but it
Yes.
was a comfort fact. She knew regular kids, but she didn't know, special needs. And it's hard, because she grew up in the 30s and 40s, and it was different. And for us back then, and she grew up in the South, there was not a lot of care.
Absolutely.
Obviously we had that, but you just let them be, so to speak. And so she had to learn that my daughter was not all that different. She wanted to be loved, and we tried to instill in her, you don't develop a relationship with her, when she's 30. You got to
Yes.
start that when she's young,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're going to remember. And so we got blessed, and things worked their way out. But did you or do you do anything special with your older children, to let them know that they're special too, and we appreciate you dealing with your daughter? I know with my son, when my wife and I were working, and they were out of school, he would watch my daughter. Well, when we came to Memphis, he got into band, and we made sure every year he went on every band trip, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So that was a special, reward for him.
Mhm.
And I had to make, well, I don't know if I had to, but I made the choice to, and told him, like, look, your mom and I are not going to be here always.
Mm.
Yes.
So at some point in time, you're going to be responsible for your daughter, for your sister. But I will do all I can to make sure that you have all the resources you need, so you don't have to, dig into your pocket to watch your sister. But unfortunately, those are the cards you dealt, and that's going to be your responsibility, right?
Mhm.
Can
Have
we
you
go
guys
into
had
that?
So
conversations
can
like
we?
that and
Can
done
can
anything
can
like
we?
Yeah.
that?
So I
Can,
would
can,
love to. Do you want to explain this one, or you want me to explain
well,
it?
so let me before we get to explaining all that. So Marlon, I was telling Reggie this before we got onto this podcast, that he is essentially living my absolute worst nightmare.
Wow. In
My
what respect?
Ebony passing, and I'm dealing with Kiera and Tiana. No, for me personally, I've had times where, I've had, let me say it this way. I've had periods of life where I've said to myself, I know that my children will deal with it if something happens. I've had periods in my life where I'm like, what if what if the strain of dealing with them just becomes too much, and then on top of that, they want to live their own lives. So
Mhm.
what happens? Where do they go? I've had moments, and I'm still kind of in this where I started working out more, I started eating better.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, I say to
Absolutely.
myself, even though I know this is going to sound delusional, I know it does, but in my mind, I say to myself, I would rather I bury them than for them to go to some facility with people that they don't know, they've never met, they've never,
Mhm.
like
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not.
it,
I can.
it,
I can say I've had that thought, but I've had that thought before. When
But
you.
to you guys' point, I just made up my mind that I was not going to put my mother in a home.
no,
Yeah,
If it took
Yeah.
every nickel that I
Yeah.
had,
it's not an
whatever
option.
would
You're
happen, it
right.
was going to happen here in the house.
It's
And
not a.
God blessed me to be able to do that, and that's what happened. But I just wasn't brought up that way,
Right.
and my
And
love
for
wasn't ready to
me,
change.
when I was young, back then in the 60s, I remember, like 5 or 6 years old, my father always told me, he's like, always take care of your mother. Don't
yes,
ever put her in a nursing home.
yes,
And, I never got that opportunity because she was gone when I was 22. But now that I have our teacher, that's not a thought. As long
yes,
as I'm able to take care of her, she's
that's right,
going to be with me. And
That's
whoever
right.
else comes into my life, you know, they're going to have to accept her as
Mm-hmm.
their
You
own.
guys come as a
Otherwise,
package. I mean, it's a
yeah,
package deal. Yeah.
And so,
It's,
but I want to commend you for at least thinking about that, Kenny,
Yeah.
because to be honest with you, that was never a thought of mine. I always told my wife, I got enough insurance on the job, I got enough in the 401k or whatever. If something happens to me, the first thing you do is pay off the house. And then you should have
absolutely,
enough money to live off the interest of everything else.
Hmm.
that's right,
I never thought about what would happen if she went before me.
First. Yeah.
We always think that the wife is going to outlive the man, and that's
absolutely,
not always the case. And
Yeah.
so that's where I failed, and that's why I had to learn. So lessons that I learned is I would share with young fathers that always be involved with the medical history of your
Loved one.
special needs child, whether it's
Yep.
autism or whatever it is, so that you know inherently. I knew other stuff, I didn't really know it, and so I'm
Yes.
playing catch up now.
Yes.
And think about all the different possibilities.
Yes.
Whether she leaves before you or you leave before her, or and I feel you. I would much rather, I think, bury my child before I put her in an institution.
Oh
I,
yeah, heck yeah.
you
And
know,
my mother, God bless her, she would always say, "Son, what's going to happen to me if something happened to you?" And I never thought about it like that because I mean, while you're taking care of them, you might have the mind, I want to live forever, at least until I get them to a stage where everything's going to be better than now. But she always used to ask, "What's going to happen to me if something happens to you, or the
Absolutely.
caregivers? You guys get sick or something like that? Then what?"
right, right,
So it's just something to think about.
yeah.
That's all.
And also, make sure you get some time for yourselves. It
Personal.
may be an hour or two or whatever, and your children are getting older. They may be able to watch them overnight. Whatever that respite is, take
Yeah,
time for yourself because you need to replenish. And I know it's difficult. I'm looking at Ebony right now. And she's, I can see how difficult it can be at times.
yeah.
But it's also very, very rewarding.
So
You know,
rewarding.
the littlest things make you so happy,
Yeah.
So rewarding.
No,
So
you guys have really embellished that with me, just the little milestones that your
Absolutely.
girls have set. That's just very heartfelt and warming. Just the little things mean so much,
it does. It does.
And to
For
me,
me,
it measures to me now, just being an engineer, it's progress. I
Yes.
don't know what way, but it's progress in the right direction. Every little step. So
Ebony
yeah,
used to have this. Ebony used to say all the time, it's the small things to me. And so, you know, when we first, got together 11 years ago, when I was a little younger, I was all about, I'm trying to go travel to Hong Kong and I'm trying to go to Germany and
yeah,
I'm tr- I'm trying to rule the world. I just
yes,
don't want nobody to
indeed.
know what I'm trying to do. And she would say all the time, Kenny, you're always focused on the big things. It's the small things. And I never understood that. My lot for me logically, it just
Yeah, I
didn't
hear
make
you.
sense. And so, when Kiera and Tiana came, and going back to what you were saying about the milestones and just seeing how again writing writing holding a pencil is a milestone, and now holding that pencil and putting it on a piece of paper is
Paper.
a milestone, and then
Yeah.
holding it, putting on the piece of paper, and then actually drawing a line through it is a major milestone. Her being
Wow.
able to, if we say now, and this, it makes me just so proud to be able to say it. If I can say to her, I can say to one of them, especially Kiera, uh, point to L. Kiera can point to L.
not,
If I
Wow.
tell,
and
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry because when it comes to these small wins right here, these, as like I said, these matter the most to me. Because you were counted out already. You were counted out already. And two, this is me experiencing it. So he's right, from holding the pencil to where she's not gonna be able to hold the pencil, to she's holding the pencil. Now she's making a line.
Hmm.
She's drawing across.
Yeah.
Now she's got a crayon and she's scribbling on every single one of my walls
We've
all
been able to.
on the mirror. And no one for the light of God can understand while I'm smiling and
I hear you.
happy and
You know
understanding
what? You
that
you
my
you can you
baby,
can repaint the wall. You know what I'm
I
saying?
can
You can just
repaint
paint
all that.
over it. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I'll never forget
And
her special education teacher messaged me from dojo and said we've had to lock away markers and crayons from Kiera because she is coloring on everything from the laptop desk to the tables to the students.
To the
She
students.
did.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
did. She tried to color her sister all the way green. Woke up one day and there was a green marker, and poor baby Gina's, her forehead was just all green. She
Wow.
stood there
Yeah.
like it was the Star Wars sword. And it's just like, okay, but let's not color on everything now.
I hear you.
So
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
small
Oh,
things.
goodness.
Her she can say that her alphabet, her listening to her say the alphabet is the most beautifulest song that I have ever heard in the world.
I hear you.
Wow.
And in the way that it's, to me, the way that it's we're able to transition that, just into our daily lives, and just dealing with other people, the small things, again, being able to sit down and have a conversation with somebody, and allow them to have their moment to decompress, to get it out, and us
Well, I
being
hope
able
that's
to,
what you
to
guys are
sit there.
doing here with us, because I've learned more about autism today than in my whole 60 plus years of life.
And
So
there's
thank you for that. That's what this is about.
Absolutely.
Sharing and the passion that you guys have. If when you go back and look at this, I want you guys to look at your faces, because I can see it, but you
Yes.
can't see what I see right now. I'm telling you, if I wasn't a strong man, I'd be boo-hooing right now. You know what I'm saying?
I've teared up quite a few times today.
Yeah, man. It's just that's what this is about. Just being real and just expressing yourself with no judgment.
And I hope and I hope that we're able to showcase the beauty of it as well. Because
Absolutely.
I feel
Thank
like
you.
a lot of times
Yes.
when we speak on autism, it's always the negative parts. It's always what they're missing out on, what we're indirectly missing out on, and all that, versus just being able to view life from a different lens, and to be
And
able
I'm
to
always
traverse that.
they're
thinking
always
about camera stuff. So you guys just made me think of like a reel that you could put out there, and it's just a measured reel. How do you express happiness? And you
Absolutely.
could start a reel from when your daughter, when she couldn't hold a pencil, to when she could hold a pencil, to she was writing.
Absolutely.
Just a little 15-segment reel.
Just a small thing.
That's how you spell happiness, or
Absolutely.
that's how you spell emotion. It's just little things. And this is just a little 15-second reel. It took 3 years, but 15 seconds show the world just how you feel. Yeah.
And and even from the aspect of success in general, and I feel like you two, having this podcast, could understand this far more than I could. It's the small decisions that you make every day that eventually accumulate to a big outcome and a big return. That's one thing that I'm definitely learning from Kiera and Tiana. There's no such thing as just a big thing. It's always small decisions that over time accumulate to whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's interesting how the little special moments with them, those milestones, seem extra special
For sure. Yeah.
and
Oh man,
like you said, make you extra happy because they have accomplished something that
absolutely,
others, professionals, said they never do.
Oh, and
absolutely.
also stuff that people take for granted.
Right. And yes. Yes.
So I kind of wanted to kind of talk about that as well. Is that a lot of one of the challenges in having or being a caregiver with profound children is that I'm in a lot of groups, and I listen to a lot of people talk about their children and some of the barriers and things that they're kind of facing, and I'm like, I wish I could wake up and have that experience, or not so much as wish, but the simple, your daughter was arguing with you, and
Wow.
those right there. I'm like, man, you're blessed. You're still blessed. I know what's going on is childhood and raising, but your daughter woke up and made breakfast for you in the morning.
And at the same time, with that, being able to extend grace that most people can't,
Amen.
because they don't have they just don't have the capacity for it.
Right.
They don't have they're stressed out within their own lives, and just having autistic children, it allows you to view everything just in a different lens, and it really allows you to extend love and extend grace.
Amen.
For me, I
Absolutely.
think it allows me to be more compassionate with
Absolutely.
others, especially those who have different challenges
Yes.
and understanding.
Yes.
So, look, we've been talking for a little bit more than an hour, and I want to be respectful of your time. I'm willing to go on if you wanted to, continue. I'm good, but if you got to go back to work or whatever, I understand. We
I got to get some
understand. You
work
tell
in, but I'll
us.
tell you what, we can come back and do episode 2.
We
We can have it
can.
amenable.
Okay, we'll
There
do
was
that then.
there
So
was
I'll
so
tell you.
many things I
So we'll
didn't
try
get to
to
discuss.
shoot for
Okay.
one day,
Well, I tell you
maybe one
what,
day next week, maybe.
Ebony, you make a list and we'll come back around and have part 2. But before
Absolutely.
we shut this down, I want you to talk a little bit about Spindle.
Yes.
Just to give that some plug here. I know I'm going to talk to Lori in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk to Lori in a couple of weeks, but this is a resource that we want others to be able to, to learn from and grow from. And Spindle sounds like an excellent organization. And so I'm going to give you the floor and let you talk a little bit about Spindle.
So
How do you
now,
spell spindle?
Spindle is Spindl. Spindle.
Got it. Okay. Go ahead. It's yours.
Spindle. We are a nonprofit dedicated toward helping the neurodivergent young adults become more independent. So we literally teach life skills coaching classes that are community living and job readiness. So we teach them how to effectively communicate. We teach them how to do resume building, job application, mock interviews, resumes, all the way up until think of it like a transition class right after high school into the adult world for the neurodivergent community.
Is that Spindle? Is that your website?
Our website is at spindle.org.
.org. Okay.
And it stands for Spectrum Independence Living. And I can send you
Wow.
all of everything. I mean, this program and this organization is what, I'll never forget the interview. It turned into like a 30-minute conversation our interview to an hour and 30-minute conversation with this amazing woman who I almost cried during our interview. And we talked literally about caregiving and what happens next. Well, what happens next for Arkansas, for Fort Smith, hopefully is Spindle. That way we can, of course, catch our young adults right here, get them connected with all of the agencies from waiver to SSI to whatever it is that they
There you go.
For transitional housing, get
there
them
you
on
go.
their own. They need help. And our core, what we're going to do, the thing that we do mostly, of course, is make sure no one feels alone. Our game nights are open to all neurodivergent community. So autism, ADHD, there's a game night. They can come out, feel safe and included and have a good time, no judgment, pizza, free food, free vibes, and then let us take it from there. And
all right, so
and there's nobody. I
got
promise
something to do a little research on. That sounds wonderful.
You need to do a commercial for Spindle.
Listen. I don't just Lori has started something amazing here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just we're new, but I know if they don't hear about us yet, they will hear about us.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, Lori is amazing. Lori Hall, the founder of Spindle. So I just wanted to give you that plug because I heard her talk about Spindle. I knew I had to have her on the podcast. And when we got to talking, she led me to you. She spoke so highly of you, Ebony. She just said you're just this fireball, so passionate about, their mission, your mission. So I knew you were a great person that I wanted to talk to, and it's been great meeting your husband, Kenny.
Yes.
And man, you guys are just a wonderful couple, a strong couple. And sometimes it may not feel like it, but you're a blessed couple too.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, this is going to be part 1, so we'll have to circle it back again and do part 2.
Absolutely.
But we're going to end this episode of the Caregivers Network. That is it for this edition of the Caregivers Network. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If there's a topic you'd like for us to explore in the future, please add that to your comments. You can also check us out at cgn1.org and leave a request, question, or comment. Thank
And
you for
remember,
joining
Ebony,
us for the Caregivers Network.
and remember, Ebony and Kenny, to shoot for the stars. And even if you miss, you'll still be amongst your friends.
Yes, sir.
To
Absolutely.
infinity and beyond, sir.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay,
Reggie and
I've
All right,
Marlon,
stopped the
thank
take care.
recording. That was excellent. I don't think we could have asked for anything better. You guys are so personable and
Yes.
so vibrant. I just love your vibe.
Thank you.
And we got a lot of stuff out there.
We
I'm glad
Yes.
do.
we're able to
Yes.
help you in a little way, and you're able to help some other folks. So thank you so much for that. We really do appreciate that.
Yeah, this was wonderful. Kenny, both of you two were great. And we'll do episode 2 sooner than later.
Right.
Okay.
And
yes, sir.
Ebony, when you guys have something special at Spindle, let me know. I'm not that far away, so I can make a trip there. And I would love to meet you guys in person, and I'm
Absolutely.
sure that's going to happen sometime soon.
I'm hoping
Absolutely.
so.
Absolutely.
Man,
And
Oh,
so
I'm
if
saying,
you
where,
guys
so
ever
you,
come
where are
this
you
way,
guys
please let me
located? You
know.
guys are in
yes,
Arkansas?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
What's Fort Smith is what, about 3 hours away from Memphis?
Yeah, about
About 3, 4.
two and a
Okay.
half. Yeah, because it's about what 2.5 hours, 3 away from Little Rock.
So,
So
so Reggie, Aunt Lois from Blytheville, Arkansas.
Okay.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
That's
got
All
the
right,
nice.
then. So, man, but this has been wonderful.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
God continue to bless you all and
You guys.
continue to
Yeah,
give you the strength to deal with, the task He's given you.
yeah.
Um, I know that I know it's gonna. Well, I'm gonna preface you this way: when the girls get a little bit older, it may be a little bit more challenging.
Yes, sir.
I get fired every day,
Yes,
so
sir.
literally, you're fired.
Yes, sir.
So
we've
Yes, sir.
already kind of entered
Also, y'all
into
been
it.
fired. You
Remember?
guys been fired
I
before
mean,
too.
yeah, we have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old girl. And as I was explaining to Reggie, their heads are started rotating. They've started projectile vomiting coming into this adolescence. And I'm just like, whoo. And then I look at Kira and Tiana. I'm like, okay, we're going to be there. We're going to get there too. And I can only imagine. I can only.
yes, yes.
Yes.
So
Reggie,
Ooh.
thank you and Marlon so much, man, and thank you for really sharing your story, man. Because I was dead serious about I need to hear this person, because
good.
I've had so many sleepless nights where I just think to myself, if something were to happen to me, if I were to get in a wreck, if I were to
Yeah.
get some type of disease, if something were to happen to me, what's going to happen? And then, like you said, a little earlier, it wasn't you, it was your wife.
Mhm.
And man, let me tell you that I mean, I keep saying it, that is my absolute biggest fear in life. And for you to live that and to still see, that vibrant spirit that you still carry, I knowing the things that you're dealing with on a daily basis, brother,
They
it's a
do.
blessing. And I really
That's
appreciate you
not me,
telling me.
man. That's God.
Yes, sir.
That's just God. I couldn't do this without that. And I'll tell you, and y'all gonna get me testified, and we already cut off the recording.
No, that's
Uh,
right. 'Cause we're picking a collection, so you can't
yeah.
testify
So
without a collection.
I see when I look back
Yes, sir.
God's vision for my life, and I say that because over 40 years ago, a friend gave me a poem,
Yes, sir.
Footprints, in college. I can't remember if it was before my mom was killed or after my mom was killed, but I
Yes, sir.
always kept that poem and I had it on the desk when my wife
Yes, sir.
died. And I
Yes, sir.
literally was on the ground feeling like I had the weight of the whole world on my shoulders. And I didn't know what to do. And I knew God was carrying me because of that poem. And I just
Mhm.
looked up and said, help me. And as I did affirmations like that, it got a little bit easier so that I was able to eventually stand up. Like, how do I do this? How do I take care of Artesia? And so, and I, pray God, send me some money, somebody to help me that would love me for me first, and then love my daughter as her own, right?
Absolutely.
And that's how I got through it, one day at a time. And I hate to admit this, but I, in my life, I never considered like suicide. But if I had to live in that despair month after month, year after year, I
Oh
understand
man,
why people will commit suicide.
absolutely,
Yeah.
1000%. That man. So I'm really big when it comes to just mental health in general. And just hearing your story, hearing about your mom. I mean, just that in itself, I think I looked at my mom came to my house for Christmas, and she dropped some gifts off to the kids, and she went to go actually spend it with my little brother and his family in Oklahoma. And I looked at her, and it was just the first time I was like, man, she's getting older.
Yeah.
Like it popped in my head, man, she's getting older.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to this place, and I'm trying to navigate this now because this is new for me. Um, when I'm looking at my mom, when I'm looking at my dad, when I'm looking at my stepdad, especially my stepdad, man, he's getting a lot grayer, and man, he's not moving how he used to. He
Hmm.
was Superman
Yeah.
for me. We we didn't really get along so much, growing up, but now he is the epitome of what a man is to me, and I thank God that my mom put him in my life. And I feel like there's like a level of love that you have for people. As I get older, it increases when it comes to him.
Hmm.
And there's a there's a love, and there's a stress there. And I know, Marley, you can attest to this better than anybody. There's a stress there that that, man, they're getting older. And I know, it's not a debate. I know, just based off of just financials, and how it goes when it comes to our family structure in general. I am going to be the one to take care of my mom, my dad, my stepdad. I'm going to be the one to bury them. I know it
Yeah.
is what it is, and
Yeah.
and just seeing her face, a couple of days, well, about 3 4 days ago, it hit me. Then like I said, I watched y'all's previous um podcast, and Marlon, I was just listening to you a lot, just speaking on your trials and what you went through. And man, there's a pressure there that I'm learning right now to navigate. And and I'm not even caregiving yet when it comes to him, so I
Oh
can
no,
only
no.
imagine
Listen,
what it
you
is.
you you are caregiving with your two daughters. You
Right.
just don't. You just know it's another level. But you two are definitely caregivers with your two daughters. There's no
Absolutely.
mistake about that.
I appreciate that.
This is just going to be another one, as God said, there's those broad shoulders of yours.
Yes, sir.
So, and the thing that I learned was this, and it was a hard pill to swallow, was that invariably the natural progression is for you to bury your parents.
Absolutely.
No parent should have to bury their children.
Yes.
That being said, that when my mother started really declining, and she had, I didn't know at the time, maybe 6 or 7 days, I was just asking God, I said, well, just keep her here just a few more months. Just every month I was just asking for more. But in the end, it was never going to stop. I was going to keep asking and asking, knowing that in her mind, she was ready to go. So it was kind of selfish. In one regard, I wanted her to be peace and at peace, but in the other hand, I just didn't want to let her go.
Absolutely.
And
So
and we'll share with you. We just had a family on, was it Saturday, Marty? Um, that
with the
they were
Bankses,
proactive, and they
Yeah.
started talking about, there were three sisters
there's
and their
their
mother.
mother.
The
Yeah.
father has dementia now, but they started talking years ago about what would happen. One
Mhm.
daughter, the oldest daughter, is a CNN.
Right.
The second oldest daughter is, I believe, a principal and educator, and she
Yes.
lives relatively close
Yeah.
Okay.
to the parents. And the third daughter, is in the suburbs around Chicago. But
Right.
they all started talking about what would happen and who would take care of their
Yeah.
parents if
Yes.
something severe happened. And so they worked it out. So I say that to encourage you to talk with your siblings. It's better to talk to them now when it's not needed than when it's definitely needed and you
Yeah.
got to do something,
Absolutely.
make arrangements, whatever it is, start, I don't know, individuals put money aside to
So no,
help
you just need
mom
to
and
have
dad or whatever you
you
need to
can
do, you know?
make a family planning meeting, whatever it needs to be,
Right.
because
You know,
I had issue going to the funeral director and telling him about what would happen. My mom was still alive. And I told him I felt morbid coming there to talk to him about arrangements for mom. He said, Marlon, no. More people need to plan, he said, because if you think it's going to be emotional and traumatic as it is for leaving a loved one, you imagine coming here where you don't have anything done. No will, no arrangements, 3 or 4 siblings. The number one issue, he said, out of siblings is the money.
yeah.
They don't want to talk about services, because I had brothers, they wouldn't even go with me to talk about it. I mean, my mother did everything. She pretty much said, I want you to do this, 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 and this. And I'm just reaffirming it. They didn't want to go, how can you talk about mom dying and this, that, the other? No, that's not it. I just wanted to make sure that, God forbid, when something happens, I want to make it as easy as for everybody involved. So he made me feel better. It's just family planning that just makes things better. Because when you were in a situation like that, you're not thinking straight. You just, so
Yeah, and
you're
make
on the
sure
right
that
path.
you two talk about what it is that you want to happen in all
Right.
eventualities, because you got a plan. You got a big family.
Yes, sir.
There you go.
I tell I'm in financial services, so I tell people all the time,
Mhm.
look, I want to make it as easy on whoever's left. My goal is that you live a long life and you have all the money that you need to have. But
Yes.
if you don't live a long
Oh,
life, I
right.
want your family to have all the money they need to have, right?
Absolutely.
And so you got to plan for that. It just doesn't material appear,
Yeah, it just doesn't.
instantly.
Yes.
You got to,
Right,
Yes.
right.
work on that,
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so, and I went through some trials and tribulations. That's how I got to this point. I wish everybody gets to a point where, the home's paid for, the big expenses done,
Yes.
and they can build wealth.
And you
It doesn't
just,
happen that way, but
your monthly
you focus
residuals,
on
that's
planning.
all you're paying is that's it, your reoccurring.
In
That's
in
it. That's
our in our communities, so many of us don't want to talk about money, and I'm like, that's what we need to be talking about.
talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly.
1000%.
You
Yeah.
know,
Um,
so how do
Yeah.
we get there? How do we do that? How do we take care of the kids? And
yes.
I found, people who have um, children with special needs tend to be more tend to plan more, because
Yes.
at my age, one of the concerns is, well, what happens to my child if something, happens to me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we tend to make sure we have the wills, or have the trust set up, special
Absolutely. The
needs
trust.
trust,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
set up. And so that's kind of like the stuff I did. And me, I kind of went overboard, and I raised my son to understand this is what he was going to do. But until you get to that point, go live your life. You
Yeah.
know, go live your
I
life.
was,
Don't worry about your
that,
sister because I'm gonna take care of her. Go live your life.
yes.
You know.
That was something that I wanted to talk to you about. If we do a part two,
No,
that
no,
was
no,
a,
no. We are doing a part
okay.
two.
Well, no,
So
you,
so
you can take
that
if
that
out.
I
that
was
was
gonna
a
tell
Yeah.
you I
Yeah.
didn't get
that
to
was a
Yeah. We're
that
gonna get
was
on
a
the schedule for
big
that like sooner than later. Trust me.
yes, sir. That was a big question that I really had for you, Reggie, was, one, I didn't, when you said you had a son, that I was so happy to hear that, because I think about, like my oldest son, and one thing that I've learned to do, and this was really hard for me to kind of, I'll just say accept. I'm starting to look at my children as, as the individuals that they are versus, who I think they're going to be in my mind. For example, my oldest son, he is not. I've always been the leader.
Hmm.
I've always been the leader of my siblings. I've always been the leader of my cousins. I'm the leader of my friends. I've
Yeah. Oh yeah.
always just took the the leadership role, and the responsibility that comes with it. When I say I'm the head of my household, I am the head of my household, and I make the final decision. That way, whatever happens, I bear the consequence of
Right.
it.
That's right.
My
Yeah.
son is not that guy. My son is, he is, listen, I just kind of
is
want to just do my own thing. So there was a day, and if I'm talking too much and y'all need to go, let me know, because
No,
No,
I'm going to
no,
no,
talk.
no.
I'm good.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
I wish we could continue on,
Okay.
but go
Yes. I was about
ahead.
to say, yeah, just you just let me know. So there was a day I was telling Ebony about this. This was a couple weeks, about a couple weeks back. So, like I said, I've been going into this transition of, getting this vision of what I think they're going to be versus who they are. So I asked my oldest three children. I asked them. I said, "Hey, I said I'm going to give y'all a scenario. I want you to tell me what role you take." So they're like, "Okay." I say, "You all are going to do a group project." I said, "Within the confines of this group project, there's a leader, and then there are two people who have their own separate roles." And so then I said, if you were the leader and this project blows up, everything is on you. The whole grunt of it. There's no saying that, well, this person didn't do this job, this person didn't do it. It is all on you. So whether it is successful or it fails, you bear the consequences and the weight of whatever that looks like. What role do you have? So I asked my oldest son first. He says, "No, I want to have a role. I don't want to be the leader. Just give me whatever role, and I'm good with that." So I didn't show it in my face, but I was disappointed. I won't lie to you. So then I asked my youngest son. He says, "Yeah, I don't want to be the leader." That's exactly how he says. "I don't want to be the leader. Forget that." So our oldest daughter, she's always took that leadership role. Although she's 12, one thing I love about her, man, she takes constructive criticism. I mean, amazingly. I'm not the, "Oh my God, come here, I love you." I'm just not that guy. Never been that guy. I'm old military guy.
Most men aren't. So
I am a military guy through and through. I'm gonna we're gonna have a conversation. And she receives those conversations so well at this age, and she listens. And I can tell just from her verbiage, she is an overachiever. She's one of those people that, if I use a word that she doesn't understand, she's gonna stop me. "Hey, what does this mean?" Yeah, she is exactly what you said, Mara. She is that person. And so with that being said, I already knew what she was gonna say, you know. But so I asked her, I said, "So, which role are you saying?" She said, I'm gonna be the leader." And so then I doubled down on it. I said, "So what you're saying to me is, if this group project messes up, if everything goes down, it is all on you. It is your fault. You were going to deal with whatever the consequence of that is." She said, "Absolutely, because at the end of the day, if I'm the one instructing people on what they're going to do, I have to take that consequence." That's exactly how she said it to me. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing."
But the other part of it is this. They're listening to what happens if it's not successful.
Absolutely.
But if it is successful,
yes,
I'm gonna be the leader of that too.
Yes.
So me,
yes.
I'm a 50% full all the time guy, even if it's at 49. I'm gonna take the lead role because failure is not an option.
It's not an option.
Dad threw that in there to stimulate my mind, but I'm not gonna fail. So
absolutely,
with the reward comes the leadership.
Absolutely.
So you put everybody else in a position not to fail. I mean, I've owned my own company for 30 years, so that's just
beautiful. That's a blessing.
Failure is not an option.
That's a blessing.
Kenny, that's interesting in what you said, because it made me think. I wish some of our political leaders would take responsibility.
Oh, that's a whole different situation.
But we're not going to get into that though. So for me, it was different. My father was the son of a sharecropper in Mississippi. And he owned his own business for 35 years. He was a barber by trade. And he had expectations for me. And part of those expectations was, and I kid you not, to grow up and be a man. He literally told me that, "I want you to grow up and be a man."
Absolutely.
But after my mom was killed, a couple years, I stopped out of school to help him out run the business. I wasn't a barber. We had a laundromat too and whatnot. And so I ran the laundromat, and there were some issues with the laundromat. And I had, I remember in our kitchen, I told Dad that I think he needed to change out some machines, right? Some washing machines. And he said, "No, something like this. I'm the boss, right?" And I said, "Dad, I think you're wrong." And he looked at me with those eyes, and he was so hurt.
Yeah.
He was so hurt that it hurt me. And I wasn't trying to disrespect him, but he said, I never would have ever disrespected my father the way you just disrespected me.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Dad, I didn't mean to disrespect you, but you always told me you want me to grow up and be a man in this
That's
world.
right. That's
You
right.
never told me you want me to be a man to everybody in the world but you.
Right.
That's it.
Our relationship changed that instant,
Yes.
and we, I, I had this love hate with my father back then because he was a strict disciplinarian,
Oh, yeah.
but I love him,
Yes.
but I came to understand a lot of the things that he did because of where he grew up, because of what he had to go through,
Yes.
and we became closer once he realized I'm not his little boy anymore. I'm more of a peer. I'm still his
Yeah.
son,
Yes.
but I'm more of a peer. And so
Oh,
we
yeah.
got
Absolutely.
to that. And my sisters never got to that point
Yes.
because,
Yes.
they didn't have, I guess, the gumption to uh, disagree with him. And
Yes.
Well,
that's what they did.
male
And so
bonding
we
is
still
never
had
going to be
disagreements,
perfect.
but we got to a point where, all right,
Yes.
we agreed to disagree and be done with
Yes.
it.
Yes.
And I love that man to death. And I was so proud that he was my father. And I tell folks that I'm not half the man. My father was like 5'6". I'm 5'9". My father's not. I'm not half the man my father was.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
But he
my
taught
father was a
me
man's
things for
man
me
too.
to know how to get through this
Yeah.
world, and that's what I try
Yeah.
to instill on my son. You're a
Absolutely.
black man in a
Absolutely.
white world. There
That's
are
it.
certain things you're going to have to do, and you're going to
That's
have to
it.
put up with. That doesn't mean you give up. That means you continue to fight.
Yeah.
So my job was to make you a better man, a better person, a better adult, and
Yes.
to give you the skills to navigate this world.
And I love that you say this, and I'm not going to go super deep into this because it's a
That's a
whole other
different
thing.
podcast.
So, one thing that I think that our people um, mess up on, I'm just going to say mess up, is I feel like when it comes to adolescence, and I'm meaning teenagers and up, I feel like when it comes to teenagers, this is the first time that they're actually using cognition from the standpoint of critiquing,
Hmm.
being critiqued. You're starting to understand what soft skills look like, and
Mhm.
and and from there, depending on the person, they're starting to teach you why you're using these soft skills. And to me, when it comes to our people, we fall short on that. I think we focus so much more from a behavioralistic standpoint. Sit down, be quiet, do your
Hmm.
homework, listen when I tell you to do something, do it. Everything is more behavioralistic versus actually developing these children. And with the and in that development process, there's going to come challenges. If I'm teaching you to be a leader, there you're gonna have to critique me at some point in time. You're
Yep.
gonna have to challenge what I'm saying to you. And to me, I feel like that's where we mess up, especially with our men.
Yeah.
We make them into these young men who can follow an order, but they can't critically think for themselves.
Mhm.
But then we wonder why they're not leaders
Right.
But
And that's,
also,
that
you need
case
to
in
give them
point.
the ability to dissent too.
I,
My
yeah, I,
generation, you never really got a chance to dissent with your
no, not
parents.
at all. And that's what
You
I was getting
know,
ready to say, Marlon.
yeah.
I remember my dad, telling me something, and I had no option to
Mm.
counter what he said, right?
Right.
It was just
Right.
his way or the
No
highway.
way. Yeah,
There was no highway, so it was going to be his way.
now.
that's
Yeah,
right.
And I
that's
hated
right.
that I didn't have a voice. And
That's right.
so I grew up like I'm not going to be like my dad. I'm not going to be like my dad. But I'm exactly like him in most aspects. But when it came to the point when my son felt a little full of himself
Yep.
and he wanted to do something and I told him he couldn't do it,
Yep.
when he wanted to give me reasons why, I made sure to give him a voice and let him voice his reasons.
Yes.
Now they still weren't
Yeah.
good enough and he still couldn't do it, but I
Mhm.
made sure he was able to speak his truth and go from there and let him learn later on why it wasn't a good idea,
I got
whatever
one
that
saying.
was, right?
You can speak the truth, but watch your tone.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Don't
That's it.
forget that I'm your father. You can
That's
speak
it.
the truth,
That's That's
But
it.
just watch your tone and don't be mindful of who you're talking to.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that's so hard for our young
It
men to
is.
do that.
Well,
To
because there'll be
From an emotional
consequences if you don't watch
standpoint.
your tone. But anyway, I got to
Yes,
get
sir.
off here, man, to
Yes,
cook
me
something.
too.
Oh
to
yeah,
eat.
yeah. I'm sorry. Like you said,
And
I get
no,
y'all
we need to have
talking.
this conversation, man. We could do some cognac and bourbon, a cigar, just the three of us. I mean, Ebony, you welcome to. But anyway, I got to get off here and cook a little
Give me
dinner.
Hey,
the
Yes,
you
sir.
most.
know,
Absolutely.
Ebony might want to smoke a cigar too. I don't know. I'm not
She'll
Hey,
do
good.
it. Yeah, she'll do it.
Hey, you all.
That'll work.
The
And,
Cubans.
Man, this has been a great conversation.
yeah, it
Thank you
has
so
been.
much for
Yes,
I
thank
sharing.
can,
you.
I
Thank
can
you all,
honestly
man.
say that I think I've got a couple of new friends here as
You
well.
Yes,
do?
sir.
For
Absolutely.
sure. So yes,
Absolutely.
Reggie, I know we work together, but let's do podcast number 2 sometime next week, if schedules permitting.
I think we're booked
Might
next
be
week right
booked up
now,
next
so
week,
we'll,
but
we'll
yeah,
work it out. We'll work it out.
absolutely.
I'll be in contact with Ebony,
You've
and
got our
we'll get it figured
emails.
out. Okay.
You got our
Let us
email,
Yes,
know.
sir.
so yeah. So anytime, man. You guys have
Yes,
been
sir.
wonderful.
Thank
All
you
right.
all,
Thanks a
and
lot, everybody.
God bless all of y'all too.
Yep,
I
and
appreciate
see
Take
y'all.
you.
care.
Happy holidays and happy New Year.
Yeah.
You as
Happy New
well.
Year. Happy Kwanzaa.
Hey,
And
there
I'll
it
say
is.
this, and hug all 6 of
Harambe.
those kids for me too.
Yes,
Bye,
sir.
y'all.
Bye. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.